We'll call to order for the planning board meeting for June 19th, 2023. It is 5 p.m. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Okay, do I have a second?
My second.
Okay, the agenda is approved. We also have the minutes from the meeting. It was a special meeting of March 2nd, 2023, here at the Pitt Center at 1 o'clock. Has anybody have any changes or concerns about the minutes from that date? If everyone thinks it's okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes. Take your time if you want to review them longer.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, may I say also, when y'all do, assuming you will get a motion in a second, can we also get a vote on?
Yeah.
To approve, not, yes, sir. Thank you.
Or in the agenda?
You can move forward just with the minutes.
I wasn't at that special meeting.
Either was I, so I can't comment on it.
I read them before. I didn't see
Okay,
any meaningful.
right. Ed, everything okay with you with this? Okay. Do you want me to have a vote for the approval of the agenda? Is that what you're saying, Weiss?
We can, yep, you can go back and do that as well. Yes, sir, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could we had a motion to approve the agenda, and it was seconded. Could we have a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, now, a motion for the approval of the minutes of March 2nd, 2023, the special meeting. Do we have a second? Okay, we had a motion to approve and a second. Could we have a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Next, we have public comments. Hello, publics. Does anybody have any comment? Okay, there's no comments from the public. Old business, there is no old business. New business, we do have new business, and it's going to be a discussion of the draft of the land use plan update. I'm hoping everyone has reviewed this prior to the meeting. It's relatively long, and I thought the best way to handle this was to discuss it in regards to the pages, and if you have any concerns, insight, or changes, or whatever to the land use plan, rather than reading it word for word. Hopefully you did read this. So the first thing we have is the community vision statement, and that I'll read. The town of Southern Shores is a quiet coastal community comprised primarily of low-density, single-family homes, interspersed with passive and active recreational facilities, maritime forests, and open space. The town's identity is intimately tied to its natural resources, history, and residential nature. We strive to protect Southern Shores' environment, enhance the small commercial district located on the southern edge of town, and preserve the town's unique character by maintaining the existence, community appearance, and form. Any comments on this? Yeah, boys.
Yeah, I'm just going to point out that we received 78, or on the draft plan was posted on the website on April 21st of this year. There were 78 town staff comments. We received 93 comments from public comments.
Okay.
The workshop meeting that we had, there were several comments there about the vision statement. And we received, some of the comments we received were also about the vision statement. So what you see today, this new revised vision statement, obviously is a lot more similar to what we have now in our currently adopted plan. And those were the most common comments that we received on it, is we want it to be more like our existing vision statement. So, I mean, that's what the consultant has done here. It's very, very similar, and I can pull up the old one if y'all want to see it.
Yeah.
Um,
Great.
Both of them refer to low-density neighborhoods. Both of them refer to primarily large lots, and both also refer to the desired plan for maintaining existing community appearance and form.
Could you pull up the one that was proposed originally?
Yes.
Are there any comments? Seems as if the new one that we are looking at today seems to be more, covers more or less.
I just had one thought in terms of changing in the second sentence where it says residential nature, to change that to residential character.
Yep. I think that sounds good.
You got character down at the bottom, preserve the town's unique character by maintaining the existing. Do you want
Yeah.
residential character in there, or residential nature? Nature kind of portrays the same as character would. It just wouldn't have the two uses of the word.
Sure.
Wouldn't be redundant.
Exactly.
Well, I was also worried though about you have natural resources and then residential nature. But I'm sure we could wordsmith it to death.
Mhm.
You could say unique qualities instead of unique character.
Any comments on that?
Or uniqueness.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of tonight. If we're just looking for feedback from you all
Yeah.
on the vision statement and then the policies.
I'll make a statement about it. I went to the beach yesterday on Father's Day at the Ocean View Loop access.
Okay.
I've never seen that many people on the beach as I saw. And so it's telling me the character of the town is changing, and it's going to change, whether we like it or not. And there's something about wanting to maintain the things that we love about Southern Shores while keeping our eyes open and accepting the fact that things are going to change, and let's be proactive in that change. Anyway, I'm not sure how to include that, but the vision statement now doesn't sound like much of a vision as much as it sounds like we want it all to stay the same. And it's like, sure we do. Everybody does, and that is not going to. So anyway, I don't have any specific wording to express that exactly, but I thought I'd throw that out there.
Any other comments concerning that? You're right in regards that it does show that we want to maintain what we have. And I think a lot of feedback was people wanted to maintain with what we had.
Exactly.
I think that was one of the primary feedbacks. So
And this is just a vision statement.
Yeah.
It's not,
it's
the rules and regulations
Yeah.
and everything.
it's the other
It's
item.
It's referred to in anytime anybody wants to do a ZTA or they want to propose a variance or something like that. We go back to say, does it
True.
fit
True.
with our vision?
True.
So, anyway, that was my reason for the comment, is that it is pulled out and used quite a bit.
Yeah, and it does have the word, we strive to protect Southern Shores environment and enhance the small. So we are looking at perhaps building out the commercial district at least.
Yeah.
On the southern edge of the town. Because this fits in and maintaining the existing appearance and form, we find that throughout the rest of this, where they want to maintain a canopy, they want to maintain et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of fits in with the other items, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's some details in the plan that can move toward this maintaining
Yeah.
the community appearance and form,
Yeah.
if we can get some teeth in it. But anyway, that's all I have about this at this point.
Wes, what's the percentage of built-on lots in the town?
Residential, the last time we did a calculation several months ago, I think it was around 88% residential. I don't have commercial, but I would guess 90, 95, 97, something like that.
That might be something to sort of track as we,
It's in that the numbers that I'm referring to are they're incorporated in the draft where it talks about demographics and all of that in the draft plan. It does call that out. I do have one question for y'all with the vision statement. And this is also based on some comments that we received. Currently, the vision statement in the currently adopted plan, it is found on page 8. It's towards the beginning. The vision statement in the draft plan is found on page 83. So I guess one question I have for y'all is, do you think it should be something that should be towards the front, go ahead and get it out there? Or are you okay with it on page 83 towards the end?
I personally think it should be out front, because what you're doing with the rest of it is more or less discussing the vision statement and the implementation of the vision statement. So it's better to say out front, this is the vision statement, and then go into the other aspects of it.
The other stuff supports the vision.
Yeah,
That's the way I felt as well.
Yeah.
That's the way, they left it in here this way for now. And I said we would discuss it and get back to
Yeah.
them on that. So
To me,
I agree. I think it should be closer to the front.
yeah, it should be closer to the front because you don't want to be reading all along and then suddenly you get the vision statement, then you go back, back and forth. So that should be, I think, the front.
Especially because, like, my point earlier that it's referred to.
Yeah.
We pull it out all the time.
It's like putting a forward of a book in the middle of the book, basically. So,
Perfect. Thank y'all.
okay, we had the land use management topics.
So did we decide to leave this the way it is and just move it forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the changing of the word nature to character.
To character.
And I'll pass on the comment from Mr. McClendon about maybe give some consideration that things aren't always going to be the same. How can you maintain
How
it?
can you, yeah.
And then I'll pass that on as well as a comment, and we'll move the vision statement further up.
Yeah, but you do have it for the commercial, but you don't have it for the residential or other aspects of it. The enhancement indicates we're going to be doing something in the future, and it is going to change,
Yes, sir.
but not for the residential. The first page actually is the land use management topics, and this is where you get more into the meat of of things. And if you go through it, it's what we want to do. It's aspirational in a lot of ways. It doesn't exactly say how in many of the things. And I might give some comments on how maybe things should be done, and everybody else here can also. It seems like also a lot of times the Civic Association, which controls a lot of this stuff, is not mentioned. Like public water is the first one. Maximize access to the beaches and public trust waters of the coastal region. Well, the Civic Association has the beaches, not the town. And I thought whenever you get into how to do things, we have to start coordinating throughout a lot of these things with the Civic Association. I don't know how much the town does that, but I think it would be beneficial for the town to actually meet with the Civic Association. And I'll point out different items that I think it would be beneficial as we go along, because right now, the town doesn't have control over the beach accesses, unless it's from a private residence. So we have public waters. That was my comment on the public waters, but does
Yes.
anybody have any? I'm going to go through each of these items quickly.
Is that addressed under PA1? Continue to recognize existing private ownership?
That was the intent. And so the language there, the management goal, that comes from Division of Coastal Management. And the intent is, and just like with the current plan, we have to recognize that we don't have any public access, whether it's Soundside or oceanfront.
Right.
So it's kind of, we're unique in that way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to address this management topic, but Mr. Zenner, you're correct. That's what the intent is there.
I mean, it could expand to say, to recognize existing private ownership and look for ways to coordinate, something along those lines.
I think the continue to recognize the private ownership,
Mhm.
I read that as, we don't plan on takeover.
No, yeah,
You know, I mean, that we're going to continue on this path of those accesses being private. But you're both correct, I think, in a better integration with the.
I want to say that there's another, somewhere further back, I think it's under local concerns, where it talks about coordinating. Yeah, LC 3.1, maintain a dialogue with and promote civic associations and other property owners associations regarding their open space and recreational facilities. Civic events or meetings might potentially utilize private facilities for events. But with respect to access, I think y'all make good points to maybe bring out something more here in PA 1.
I had a comment about PA 2. Expand the capacity as opportunities arise. I don't know where that, how do you,
Donates their-
as opportunities arise, there may be lots that are available for sale, like the one at Chickahawk and Highway 12 that was for sale. In my mind, that was an opportunity. So I'm trying to understand how the town plans to research those opportunities, find those opportunities, make our interest known to the private sector. Again, like you said, Tony, there's no how
No.
listed here. So there were a couple of places in here that mentioned, we're going to do this as opportunities arise, but there's nothing to say how we're going to be aware of those opportunities, seek out those opportunities, and then, have a method of following through, like set aside money to acquire these things as opportunities arise.
Wes, is there an implementation matrix that goes along with these that has potential actions?
No, sir.
That's what I said at the beginning. It's more like aspirational. This is an
It is.
aspirational document, not so much a nuts and bolts document about how you're going to implement these items. I just think if we see something that might help with implementation, just mention it. But I don't think they'll change anything because we're not supposed to be implementing anything off of this.
You're right.
There
It's
are
hard
quite
to
a few.
read, like PA 4,
Yeah.
same thing,
Yeah,
Somebody wants to donate an oceanfront lot, is the town we're going to jump up and get involved and start in that business? We will consider
mhm.
opportunities as they arise.
Well, I think it's important in a lot of cases to say we will consider because you're not tied down to doing it in the event
Yeah.
the town decides they don't want to do something.
True. That's true. Okay.
PA 5, structures in the public trust waters, are they required to be insured for demolition if a hurricane broke them up? Who's responsible for what's left?
They're not required to be insured, only if there's, a backed mortgage.
The lender requires it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So a lot of our structures that are in the public trust have been there for a while. So what happens when they fall apart? Is it, who pulls the trigger on informing the owner that they've got to fix it? What was the hurricane that came through here? Did Martin's Point? Martin's Point?
Irene flooded
No
us in the back, yeah.
A lot of debris. So, we're talking about, development in the public trust, and it's like, well, what happens when it gets blown out by a hurricane? Who picks up the tab? How do we have, does the town have, the ability to inform, to tell them to clean it up?
In a lot of cases, after an event like that, I don't think we're going to know whose property is whose. How can you tell Fred Smith's pier from,
Well, if you've got old islands that are broken off and out there creating a hazard, you
the
know,
pilings are gone though.
or not, you know, it just, who does damage assessment after a storm?
Town staff and volunteers,
Okay.
but in a lot of cases, it's focused on houses and structures as opposed to piers and decks
And bulkheads.
and bulkheads.
What about the town's debris removal contract? What does that cover?
Let me see, C and D, not,
If you can get it out to the street.
it's, yeah, I
they'll
think
haul it away.
depending on if it's declared or not declared, and then if the town decides to pay, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
Okay, moving along, we have beach nourishment. And then there's an article in the beach nourishment that talks about the beach nourishment that occurred in Southern Shores, except for 9th Avenue. No, I'm kidding.
There are some comments on this section as well, so this is subject to change, including one of the comments states beach nourishment requires a 5-year maintenance cycle. That's not true, it's not required,
Right.
but it may be in a maintenance plan, beach management plan or something like that, that it may be needed on 5-year periods. And obviously the communities here in Dare County have been doing them on 5-year intervals, but it's not required.
It's not required, encouraged maybe, or
Yes.
reevaluated
Reevaluated.
in every 5 years.
So just to follow up, does the town have an annual survey for the beach, or is it every 5 years they do a survey?
It's surveyed annually. Annually.
Okay, we have land use compatibility and character. And again, in looking through this, with the low impact development and what is recommended, I don't know how the town could encourage it, but I think one of the things that's came out to me, and it's something, again, it wouldn't go into this, but it's a to-do for the town, perhaps. I'd like to give you stuff to do, Wes. To do for the town, they have rain barrels and cisterns and green living roofs. Some of the towns, and I know some of the locations, actually distribute rain barrels, and they're free from the Coastal Federation, I believe. You can get a rain barrel free from them, and I think that's, in the future, that has nothing, it doesn't fit into this, but I think as we go through this, make notes perhaps, or maybe some notes that says, this is how we can address this in the future.
Yes, sir.
I think, kind of, based on what you're saying, that word encourage development,
Mm-hmm.
the only way that I think we as a body can encourage development is by codifying, certain items to give people credit on
Yes.
lot coverage. Like later on, it says there's something about, we do that in the commercial zone, but we don't do that in residential.
Right.
So I think that may fall on us to bring forward some encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
If we really want
Is
something to happen.
is a better word support there instead of encourage? I don't know.
Yes, support,
Could be.
encourage development, redevelopment that considers land. Yeah, all this is very aspirational, but, and I think it's great to encourage. but
If we're only encouraging by education, I don't think there's any teeth there.
No.
I mean,
absolutely.
education is, don't get me wrong.
I understand what you're
Absolutely
saying.
important.
Yeah,
But by codifying strict things, if you save that tree, we'll give you 2% more lot coverage. You know, we don't, I know the staff doesn't get to that level of macro development. But if we're getting in the encouragement business, and then maybe we do, show me what you're doing that's great. And maybe there's a little wiggle room.
Yeah, also on LUC 3.2, I put down again, consider evaluation of town's current policy on separate living spaces, accessory dwelling units, the infamous accessory dwelling units. I'm going to digress for a minute, but I remember a couple months ago, people wanted chickens. Remember that, where we had the great chicken debate? And the answer given was that the Civic Association does not allow chickens due to its covenants, which, okay. Well, the Civic Association doesn't allow accessory dwelling units in certain blocks also. As former chairman of the ARB, I'm familiar with that. There are certain blocks that if you do have an accessory dwelling unit, it has to be attached to the main property. So just to digress a minute, if we chicken gate, when we had chickens, the Civic Association covenants were fine to negate that. But accessory development units, suddenly it falls by the wayside. And we don't utilize the Civic Association for that. And that's why I said, I think there's got to be more of a coordination between the Civic Association and the town, and that falls right into it with the accessory development units. Not all the blocks are like that, but some are. I know Seacrest Village is. Yeah, so just something to think about again, more. We have to be consistent. And I think that would be a consistency where we don't allow one thing because of the covenants, but we allow something else.
That's in the HOA covenants?
Yeah.
It's not a deed restriction.
No, it's covenants. The covenants had certain blocks.
So are all of the HOA covenants in Southern Shores readily available, like on our website?
Not ours, not the towns, no,
Not
sir.
the towns.
Mhm.
I don't
I know
know.
there's a registration with the state, but I don't know that it has all the covenants.
When my wife worked for the Civic Association for those 3 years, she was putting everything on their website, all the covenants. So in other words, somebody could call up and say, I live X, and you could access that block's covenant. I don't know whether it's still available, but she did put it on.
Okay.
Whether it's still there, I don't know. I'm sorry I digressed and got off track, but I just think a lot of times when I'm reading these things, I see there should be a coordination that is missed out, and just for an action plan.
But except for that, not every property is subject to those covenants.
There's a covenant, there's deed restrictions on some locations. Yeah, there's deed restrictions. But if certain blocks have those covenants where you
Right.
can't do X, Y, or Z. And like some of them have, to get off topic, some of them have that you can't have a garage,
Right.
but you can have a boathouse.
What I'm saying is my street isn't subject to either
What street are you on?
Palmetto Lane.
No.
Right.
Well, we're talking about the Civic Association. We're not talking about Chickahook.
But I'm not in that either.
Yeah. Chickahook has a whole separate, same as the Southern Shores Landing, they have separate covenants. They will have separate covenants.
Right, but I guess the point I'm making is, I don't know that we should regard them so much because not everyone's subject to any of them.
You are in Southern Shore Civic Association.
No,
That's
I'm a member of it, but I'm not subject to any.
Yeah. Well, I thought,
There aren't any deed
Correct.
any HOA restrictions for your block.
Correct.
yeah, but there are for other blocks. So
Yes.
my point is, if you have that restriction and you're going to use the civic association to not allow something or to allow something, you can't pick and choose. You got, a rule is a rule is a rule. And the state said when they did this, that it does not overrule the homeowners associations. So the homeowners associations and the civic associations regulations take priority according to, am I right on that, Wes?
Talking about the proposed legislation that
Yeah.
would mandate accessory
Yeah.
dwelling units, yeah, it would not apply to covenants.
Right. So it's just something to think about, and we have that in here again. That's why I said we have accessory dwelling units in here, and it's just a thought for the future, I think, for future thought.
Okay, the Southern Shores Civic Association is a voluntary membership. You can join or not. Does that mean that your property is subject to those HOA rules if you don't join?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Huh.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. We have low-impact development techniques. We're up to 4.1. Any questions on that? I think that's a great thing to have. And then we have land use compatibility and character.
I just wondered if LUC 6, should it be continue to encourage commercial development and redevelopment?
Yeah, I think that would be a,
I mean, we do kind of address redevelopment under LUC 8, but I think it, I think you're addressing it more specifically under LUC 8 and generally above.
Wes, are you going to have LUC 8.1? Is that going to be included? In other words, we're working on that right now.
Yeah, we are, and I think most likely the way the schedule looks and the way things are falling into place, this plan will be adopted before y'all consider the commercial design standards.
Okay.
So this will be one way to check off one goal and policy to address that we
Okay.
can check off.
We have 9, LUC 9, enhance entryway directions and marker signage. Monitor and preserve maritime forests.
How's that going to be done? I mean, this is one of those
Yeah.
squishy things.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be that,
Yeah.
you know, the GIS and everything, that there's a way of mapping and delineating critical areas that we deem critical.
Yeah.
Or Forester deems critical, but to just say, monitor forest cover, come on.
Unfortunately, the Architectural Review Committee of the Southern Shores is not active, and consequently, they've been clear lotting and building.
Yeah.
And because they're doing
Right.
it, it's like, okay, how can you enforce that? Because it's already being done, and so you're right. But we are the planning board, and we are looking at how we see this community that we're living in. And people look at the government, the town, as for direction. So I think it's important that we look at ways to enhance what we have by putting in place what we can. Now, is it that we create a relationship with the association, the civic association, and say, okay, We've done this study. Everybody has come to us and said they want our environment to stay kind of like it is now. We have seen since COVID a big change in our community. And how do we protect it? Okay, it's like beach nourishment. It took years for the towns to get together and decide. 10-year tourism plan in the paper here. How about 10 years to get a sewer system? How about we start talking and that the town here in Southern Shores, puts feelers out to the other towns and say, with all the increased population that we have, you've seen more people than ever on the beach. We've seen more people than ever in the church. And there got 14 houses on one lot and we live on sand. I mean, it's a matter of fact, and all this is about water quality. I kayaked in the Sound yesterday. The Sound is warmer and there's more vegetation growing than I've ever seen. Okay, we are the planning board. How do we present to other planning boards and other towns? It's time that we start looking at a central sewer system and find out where it can be and how it's going to be paid for. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I just feel that what we're looking at here is encourage development, but still keep things, and it's like, okay, the trees, I agree. I mean, all of this is what we were about. We're not,
Everybody, both Chickahawk and Southern Shores had tree, before you build, delineate your trees that are going to be removed.
right,
That's all gone now. Nobody asks any questions about land disturbing,
I do.
Yeah, he does.
but not for trees, not specifically for trees. do you?
Yes, sir.
You do?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been out with Wes and he does that.
But there's no regulation, right?
No.
to-
There's no regulation. We currently strongly encourage you to keep as many trees and as much vegetation as you can. If
okay.
somebody says, I'm cutting pretty much everything, leaving one or two oaks, yes, sir. We have to
Okay,
allow that.
encourage is different than
Yeah.
a rule or a regulation.
That's right. And
So the question is, are there specific rules and regulations? No.
No,
there
I-
are, that's why it says in here, consider establishing or and you would need to take out enhancing ordinances.
Yeah.
We don't have any to enhance, but consider establishing ordinances related to heritage tree and maritime forest preservation. And since I've been here, tree regulations or tree ordinances have been discussed at least 3 times. And when it says, if we were to adopt something that says consider, essentially, I would say that the planning board would discuss it, the town council would discuss it, and the town either council decides to either pursue it or not pursue it. And historically, the town council, several different town councils have chosen to not.
yeah.
Pursued.
I could give you a quick history because I've been involved. in
You
that.
are, yes, sir.
And 18 years ago, 20 years ago, we had a vegetation board here in Southern Shores. You remember that? Where we would actually go out with, at that time, I forget the person's name, we would go, Hayduck. Hayduck. I would go out with Hayduck. We would fill out a form, have the builder and the owner, if he was there, sign the form to say what they were keeping. We did a ordinance. It was approved by the planning board under George Kowalski. The then mayor, I have it at home with the mayor, with the then mayor name on the bottom, refused to bring it up to town council, and it never went anyplace. And that actually addressed the what is here, because it was a result of a study done by North Carolina State University that came out and evaluated the trees and the waterways of Southern Shores. And that was their suggestion. So that was done. Then it was done again by the Civic Association, where I have that ordinance I wrote at home, and then ZTA. And then what happened was the Civic Association, for some strange reason, pulled out of it at the last minute. and I was told not to pursue it after I brought it before the planning board on 2 occasions. So this has been attempted in the past.
Okay, so is it something that we need to look at and attempt again?
That's
Yeah.
what this is saying. Let's look
Yeah.
at it.
Has it been in the comprehensive plan before? Support for it?
I think there's a reference to it in the current land use plan.
I think that.
It's not put, I don't think it's put exactly like this, but
We have to find out a way we can quantify the strategic areas that we're trying to, not individual lot, but just in general, the southern shores. Where is the maritime forest delineated over time so we can see how much we've lost or how much we have today? But you need to sort of, and then that thing about the special, what do they call those trees?
Heritage trees.
Heritage tree. Who's going to call it a heritage tree?
Town of Duck, I think, they have heritage trees in their ordinance.
Yeah, Duck has it.
And Nags Head has
But who-
the live oak is declared as a
Live
town
I
tree.
think that's Duck live oak,
Just a live oak is automatically a heritage tree.
Yeah.
according to Duck and Nags Head.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a start.
Again, aspirational, but it's just some notes for thinking down the future.
But we discussed on the commercial side about plans being submitted and approved. So is this also getting back to when somebody plans to build a house and approval? In other words, how can we incorporate what we're saying that can be used, on a daily basis? So when somebody puts together a plans and comes to the planning, not to us, but to have it approved, then on that site plan, there should be, the trees and what's being saved. And then you have it in the initial, and then we can, say yes, a certain percentage.
Yeah, you need a ZTA on that.
It would have to be in an ordinance, and
Yeah.
it would be trees of diameter over X. You
Yeah.
would pick a size and. you would
Over
say that
X
they
from
have
a
to be
certain
shown- They
height.
have to be shown, or they have to be kept, or you have to replace them. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a lot of ways to.
It's diameter and height is how it's
But it would
measured.
be at this lot disturbance
So it has to be a
phase
diameter.
of development. Is that
Correct, yes, sir.
It would have to be at the lot disturbance. To get the lot disturbance
Yeah.
permit, you'd have to go through that.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah, we did that
Not after.
18 years ago.
We did it within the last 10 years as well.
Yeah.
Well, then
It
if
was
you have
proposed.
it, you can pull that back out again, and we can look at it.
The mayor at that point disbanded the vegetation board.
I understand
So-
that, but you have the foundation of what we're
Yeah.
talking
Oh,
about,
yeah.
so we can re-resurrect it.
Mhm.
We have veterans. Put in-
No, I've gone through this twice. I'm done.
Shove the under the pole.
Tony, I'll bake you a cake.
Yeah. Next is infrastructure carrying capacity in natural environment. What is the thoughts on that? Maintain long-range plans for public infrastructure systems. Discourage the filling of coastal wetlands. You can't, yeah, and, yeah, you're not allowed, and the same allowed hard armoring of natural shoreline, and then down the bottom where it's illegal in North Carolina to actually do that on the ocean side.
What you can do it on
Yeah,
the west side.
the west side, it's actually considered a better way. Any questions on that?
No, not about that.
Okay.
Of
Uh-oh.
course, I want to loop back.
Okay, you went back?
Yeah, back to page 100. Okay, we have and this goes to basically the whole plan here. LUC 8 says create standards. That's an imperative.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, on page 100,
Yeah.
LUC 8,
Okay,
it uses the word create, which is that's something we have to do. We need to do that, right?
Mhm.
Somebody needs to do that. Earlier, there was a place where somebody has to create a plan. It's like, you must do this. But then we have different places where it's consider establishing a tree ordinance, monitor and preserve. It's not, there are no mandates. There are no do that, look into it. You don't have to necessarily pass it as create standards sort of indicates. But I'm wondering if some of these, if a few of these that we're talking about, such as a tree ordinance, we need to say, create a tree ordinance, see where it goes, or create residential development standards. Something that I'd rather you stick with a word that is imperative for all of us, all the way through here, and everything else can be considered
Well,
or done. You know what I mean?
to reestablish.
Reestablish. Uh-huh.
Got it all the way up.
Reconsider a tree ordinance.
Well, then that would be under 10.2, review standards for tree preservation and new development.
Okay, review is, yeah,
Yeah, so you would say,
I would change that to.
create standards for tree preservation.
Yeah, if we'll stick with the word create throughout for everything that we want somebody to do.
Well, so you all eventually will get the entire draft document and you all be making a recommendation to the town council. They ultimately
Yeah.
approve it, revise it, whatever. So, but you all, just making sure you're clear, you all would be recommending that it say create, but it could be subject to change by town council.
Yeah, I would just like to have the verbiage throughout the plan that is pretty concise about.
Mandatory.
Consider versus do something. I mean, actually investigate. Right. We're going to do this. And I did want to ask you what a certified local government is.
It's a program. They list the benefits, mostly related to historic preservation, historic landmark programs.
Is that just more paperwork for you and Cliff?
Maybe,
Maybe.
but no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But we currently are not a certified local government.
Okay.
Well, they can get you some design standards we could probably use.
Okay, sorry, Tony.
No, you're good. You're good. That's what we're doing. I believe we were up to water quality, which is page 104.
I'm sorry, real quick, just to go back. So are you all in agreement that instead of saying support in any of the proposed policies, that it be something mandatory instead of optional?
Well, we haven't even gotten to water quality.
Yeah, the words support and encourage are not very meaningful.
They're easy to get around.
Yeah, very nebulous.
And if somebody brings you a plan that maybe would encourage low impact development, but they're also off the wall on something else, then why aren't you encouraging low impact development?
Okay, I'll
You
just,
know what I mean? It just is a little squishy. If we want to just encourage certain things, that's fine. But it seems like there's some of these that we'd like to try to take some action on.
Hmm.
Or
So
see-
what's your
See if there's
word
an
then?
appetite.
What's your word for LUC 4 on page 98 where it says support low impact development strategies? What word would you use there?
Create, to me, that the only way you can support those things is to create an incentive that would encourage people to do them.
So would it be create and encourage low impact development strategies?
Could be, yeah. Mhm. I mean, that gets us off square one, but most of the things like tree ordinances and vegetation ordinances, unless they are tied to an HOA, developers basically ignore them and pay the fine if they want to. The better thing than a stick is a carrot, is offering additional lot coverage or, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if you want to tie your hands to that it has to be incentivized. I mean, when I read support low impact development strategies, that doesn't necessarily, I hear what you're saying, but that doesn't preclude the town from deciding the way to support them is to require them.
That's right. That's right.
And I think there's a lot of context, variability when we're talking about the words, which ones. But when I read support, I think it's, we don't want to put staff in a position of all of a sudden you plop down this and you've got 50,000 things to do. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this yesterday, Wes?
Sure.
And I think after this, you do end up with some type of implementation plan, some type of work plan, working with this board and working with council to say, okay, this year, what are we going to tackle?
Mhm. So support really is enough on many of them.
I think so. I think if there's things that everyone feels really critical about, yeah, then maybe you want to use a little bit different language.
So low impact development goes with both commercial and residential. Is that correct?
Yes.
And one feature or many features would be identified as an LID feature.
How do you mean?
Well, if a builder is going to say, I'm going to use some low impact development techniques, they have to be, someone has to say, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, usually,
Needs to be identified.
usually you would have an acceptable list.
Okay.
And it may even say other, and hypothetically, they could say, well, this is a newly advancing technology. Would it be acceptable? And, yeah, that's how it works in practice.
So then you would weigh that against whatever they might be asking for additional
Lot coverage or,
lot coverage or something
right.
else.
If we got to that point of actually codifying it.
Okay.
Right. We can stick to the squishy word.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the vegetation ordinance when we had should on a lot of things and you should do this and everybody said, uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, we'll just have to consider that when it comes down to it. Now that's actually doing something, establish a septic system monitoring program to identify underperforming and malfunctioning septic systems. So that's actually actually a do.
And one of my comments is to change that to consider establishing.
Pardon me?
So you don't want to, what about support?
Yeah,
No.
support, consider, yes, sir.
Yeah, you want us to put support or encourage?
That would be one of my, yeah.
I like the word establish. I don't know. And I also like establish a consistent water quality monitoring program.
Now leave that one established.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good
yeah. And we're on 106 natural hazards.
Well, Mr. Zenner was, as it points out in here, NAG's Head program, I mean, he
Yes.
knows what all that entails, so.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you had thoughts about leaving it as is or consider or.
I mean, I think it's a great program. As
Yeah.
someone who, when I bought my house here in 2019 and had a drain field fail in like the first 4 months, and I would have really appreciated the low interest loan program, free inspection services.
Yes.
There's a lot of it. I mean, the challenge is that NAG's Head's program is funded out of their water billing. And so, how do you fund a program in Southern Shores? I think that's something that certainly a consideration.
Yeah.
But I will say that I do some work in Virginia with a region up there that actually got a grant from Virginia Department of Health, I think, funded by federal government money, that they are essentially trying to do a similar program to NAG's Heads on a regional level. And it is, not locally funded. It's funded out of federal and state money. So, I mean, there's resources available that we could leverage. And you can directly relate it to the water quality and, water quality issues, et cetera. So.
Thank you.
And we're on page 106, natural hazards. Any comments on this?
I guess my thing was when the new work at the marketplace went on, is like, no, there wasn't any requirement to evaluate the existing stormwater infrastructure that was there and was, 30 years old? And eventually they deemed it
Yeah.
all in one piece, but it didn't look that way back then. But when we have these stormwater structures, like the backside of the marketplace where it just dumps the driveway, dumps into the canal, at some point we got to upgrade those to just not just straight piping into the receiving. So we have to establish a way of evaluating any stormwater management equipment.
Wes, is that done whenever anything is being built or redeveloped? Are they evaluated?
Well, it depends. For the marketplace, they weren't required to get a new state stormwater permit or approval because it was already in place. They couldn't, yeah. But
Same
you all
footprint.
put the requirement and the condition in place that their engineer meet with the town engineer before construction, which they did, to evaluate the infrastructure, to evaluate the pipes and all that. And they did, and then to do it again at the end, and they did that. And in the case of the marketplace, they did do everything that they were asked to do with respect to that. And if it's a commercial project that disturbs over an acre of land, it triggers a state stormwater permit. But in this case, it did not, because they were I don't remember all the exact reasons, but for new development, if it's over 1 acre, then commercial, they would have to obtain a state stormwater permit. But we have the 1.5 inch stormwater retention requirement, where a property, they have to demonstrate, like the new Dare County EMS and fire station on East Aldwood Trail. They did not have to meet any state stormwater requirements. They only had to meet our local 1.5 inch stormwater requirement. And for that, the town engineer, he reviews the plans and comments and ensures that it's installed correctly. But as far as evaluating existing systems on private property, no, we don't have anything in place for that right now.
But at least for commercial systems, there needs to be a re-inspection timeline, 10 years or whatever, they need to, because there's sand around here, and that tends to fill things up. So it works great on day one, but then 20 years, what happens?
Why don't you could put in there, are designed, constructed, operated, and maintained.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't
But someone has to,
do that.
well, someone has to sign off on the fact that it's been done, that it will be ready for a storm, a hurricane type storm in 15 years or 30 years. So that's all I'm saying. You put this stuff that's important, but it's not going to work forever.
But I think part of the problem probably is, do you even know where all the private BMPs and stormwater control measures are?
Well, I guess, I know that we've got a couple of them in Chickahaw. That one down there on Chickahaw Trail, it drains into, over on, what's the street over there by Andy's house?
Bayberry?
I think it's Bayberry where that line sink drains, comes from Chickahaw Trail, goes underground and across the road and into.
It comes out at, it's either Bayberry or Beech Tree, yeah,
Yeah.
Into the canal.
into the canal.
Because the end of Chickahaw Trail, would flood so bad. So we put a line sink in, and it hasn't flooded since. But then Cypress Pond is no longer a swamp.
So would you like to put the word maintenance in?
I mean, I think it's probably not a bad thing.
Yeah. Okay, Wes?
Yes, sir.
So you got that, you got, what they had to put a gravy pond. We did the red and put all that drainage in. Well, that was infiltration. Swell.
The 1.5-inch stormwater requirement that the town has, is that required for commercial as well?
Yes, sir. So if they disturb more than an acre, then they have to meet our 1.5-inch requirement, they have to meet state requirements as well.
To get a permit from the state, but for us, it's a sign off. And the permit from the state, there's no follow-up inspection that the state requires necessarily that we know about.
I think they do have, I don't know about like 10 or 15 years down the road, but I think that they ensure that when it's developed, that it meets what they're required to do for the permit. But as far as the town requirement for a site plan for the 1.5-inch, drainage requirement, I mean, it's required to be shown as a certificate or certification on the site plan from an engineer.
From an engineer.
If we were a MS4 community, which we're not, then we'd be subject to significantly higher requirements.
Yeah, we don't participate in any of those state stormwater programs. That's like referred to.
Okay. Want to move on to local concerns, page 108. If we're done, unless somebody has more comments. Wes, are these the ones that you took input from with local? In other words, it says local concerns, so is this feedback that you received from the meetings,
No, a lot of these were in the
the original?
the original draft. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And one thing I noticed is that local, like the previous management topics, LUC, ICC, NHA, WQ, they're all identified on page 95, but local concerns and the following transportation mobility, there's no description of, so that's a comment I'm going to submit. There should be some sort of description of, where did these, what's the basis?
Okay, is there comments concerning local concerns?
Do we have a formalized plan where we go in and help with canal maintenance and,
Yeah, so the Public Works Department, they do periodically inspect the town's canals for trees, vegetation, trash. The boat club used to do the same thing and assist with that, but I don't think the boat club I think they've been dissolved.
yeah, there's a couple of canals right off of the boat club that are, you have to maneuver even with your kayak because of the trees. So if somebody wanted to get that cleaned up, they could contact the town and
Yes.
they would do that?
Yes.
How about Turtle Pond?
That's private SSCA property, or no, Turtle Pond, I think is Chickahaw property.
Yeah.
Okay. But it can be overhang. I mean, that's gotten those,
Not if it's, the town can't, Public Works can't address it, at least currently, if it's on Chickahall property. But in the canals, it's mostly complaint driven. If there's a tree or branch that projects into or over the canal, then we have an ordinance where we can notify the property owner and require them to address it. If it's floating in the canal, then typically the town will take care of it. But if it's still attached to land, the ordinance says that the owner is responsible for abating that violation.
cutting it free.
Correct. Hiring a tree, usually it's hiring a tree company, and it's expensive for them.
Okay. Last but not least is transportation and mobility. I do have one comment. I think there's a typo. This is the only page I saw a typo under the red, under MB 1.6. See pedestrian priorities map on page 113. It's on page 111, I believe.
I think that's a result of the different drafts and.
Yeah.
I want to go back.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, good.
Something that, LC 4.1.
Let's see. What page you talking about?
I'm sorry, 108.
108.
It was something that I had mentioned once before about creating a master plan for the town hall and the other associated here to evaluate and identify the expansion needs and all.
Mhm.
And then 4.3, it says upgrade, public facilities, and buildings as needed. Sounds to me like we're going to continue to piecemeal and do what needs to be done today without really having a vision for the future. And since this is supposed to be a vision type document, and the create a master plan is an imperative. So let's leave that, create.
Yes, sir.
Also, did the town move forward with acquiring the property on Skyline?
That's still in the process. Still in
Still in
process.
process.
Yes, sir. Purchase hasn't been completed yet.
Okay. Be a great addition to the town's footprint, I think.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
No. And so we were on the transportation and mobility.
I have a little side thing on transportation,
Mhm.
and that is the existing light right now, Chickahawk and Ocean Road. I went at 8:15 on Friday morning and waited almost 5 minutes for that light to change to go left, and there was no traffic. All those visitors were home sleeping. And so that, I think, could signal a little bit quicker.
The
And then
pedestrian
to-
signal,
I beg your pardon?
the pedestrian signal or the?
No,
the-
just turning left to go. I was going up to play tennis at Hillcrest. So I was going out off of Chickahawk onto 12, going north, and waited, like I said, it was at least 4.5 minutes for the light, and there was no traffic in either direction. I mean, occasional truck going north, but nothing coming south. And I mean, it could have changed and I could have turned.
I run that light quite a bit.
And then tonight coming,
Wait on nothing.
again, there was a long wait and there were people at the corner trying to get across and they kept pushing the button.
That doesn't work.
And what we're doing
doesn't
now, and
work.
this wasn't last year, it has a green arrow now going right before the pedestrians can walk. And those poor people started out once they saw the traffic stop because they were frustrated. And the people were still going north.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to me, that's a hazard just waiting to happen. I think that needs to be changed. I'm sorry about that.
Well, we were there a couple weeks ago and it didn't even, the pedestrian signal would never signal.
It doesn't work. The button doesn't work.
I saw it work today.
They're working on it. They're currently working either today or this week. They are working on the pedestrian signal. I'm not sure if there are any immediate plans to make any adjustments to the traffic signal, but to the pedestrian signal, we're working. DOT is
I'm
working
just
on that.
concerned that those people are going to go out, because they stop coming south, but they're still allowed to go north because you can turn right with the arrow. And somebody's,
Isn't that where someone was killed last year?
Yes. 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
at that light. I think it's also confusing for people that don't realize that a crosswalk doesn't, if there's a light at the crosswalk, you have to follow the light signals. But all the other crosswalks where there is no light, the pedestrian has the right of way and they expect people to stop. And I think it's such a busy intersection,
and
making it
that's
more clear and safe.
exactly because coming down, and that's what happened right here. There was a truck that stopped and there were people wanting to come across and then finally another truck stopped and then they were able to go. So, and I'm thinking that's what these people are. And again, they're visitors, they're not here all the time. So they see all this traffic stopping on the south and then they start to go out. Well, now this line of traffic's going right and this line is still going north, so yeah, to me, it's an accident waiting to happen. I'm sorry.
No, that's controlled by NCDOT. They're the ones that control traffic signals. And they had the same problem at the marketplace where somebody got hit. And it's the same thing. I looked at transportation and mobility and I saw here something I've been asking for 5 years.
Crosswalk at,
No, I don't want a crosswalk. No, that's 10th Street.
I'm kidding.
Address general repairs, tree root control and tree trimming, road resurfacing, crack sealing and right-of-way clearance when pedestrian pass. Again, all along Duck Road from Dogwood to Duck, it's a disaster. And it's for 5 years I've been talking about it. So I'm glad that's in there.
All infrastructure needs maintenance.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, I think it's
set it
great.
and forget it.
I think it's great that you're doing more paths, but we have to maintain the paths that we currently have before we start looking at other paths. Okay, that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any comments concerning the vision statement, the land use management topics, anything whatsoever? Okey dokey. What we can do now is our public again. If you're awake, would you have any comments?
I'll make one comment.
Go ahead.
My name is Donna Creek, and I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Alabama Association of Realtors. But before I did that, I was the Dare County Planning Director, and I have written land use plans before. And I submitted comments to Wes, and sometimes other governments in their land use plans, they actually have a listing of words that are consistent that are used in there. And this is what it means. They have them spelled out. The town of Philadelphia has a list in their land use plan, and I have made that comment to Wes, and sitting here listening to you guys saying, well, what does support mean, and what does create mean, and what does this mean? It may be worth the time to consider having your consultant pull in some of that, and just make
Okay,
it better so that there's a clear understanding of what you're saying. So that's all.
okay. And for the record, could I have your name again, slow?
Donna Creek.
Donna Creef, okay. Because when we do the thank you, Donna.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Planning board member comments.
I just have one comment.
Oh, too late, Leo. Go ahead, Leo.
Question I think we need to reevaluate or revisit is the use of Southern Shores being a maritime forest.
Mhm.
You Google maritime forest in Dare County, and Southern Shores doesn't show up there. So maybe a technical thing, but I think somebody potentially over time question, because we've been down this road before.
Yeah,
And
Well-
what you get is you get off, you get tag shape, you get $1, but there's nothing information here.
when,
So that's something you need to.
That's something to look-
Question.
when NC State evaluated it, they, 20 years ago, 20-some years ago, they said it was a maritime forest, and I guess,
Is this Cypress Pond? Is that one?
Yeah.
You said it was a unique area?
yeah. Mhm. That's a good point, Leo, yeah, yeah. Especially,
It was 20 years ago, because normally, as I understand, I'm not no expert on it.
yeah,
As I understand it, if you look at what they are calling maritime forest, there's
mhm,
no residential.
right. And,
That's just a point there.
no, that's, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, we're going to do planning board member comments. We'll start, no comment?
No comment.
Other than I support you doing something to encourage a sewer system discussion with the towns.
Okay. Nothing? What, I have nothing. I want to appreciate everybody coming, but Wes has comments.
Yes, sir. The next meeting will be July 17th. It could potentially be a lengthy agenda. We do have a variance application from a sign company for a new business to be located in the marketplace where Dollar Tree vacated. There's a Five Below that wants to go in that location. They're asking for a variance from our sign requirements. May have the special use permit application from Gene Guy LLC for the commercial development, mixed-use group development on 158. You may have the ETJ, the Martins Point ETJ relinquishment ordinance, and you may also have another lot width ZTA. So variance for sure, the others possibly. It's to be determined at this point.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, I want to, do I have I know this is a tough thing to ask for, but do I have a motion to adjourn?
No, I'm scared.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Wes?
You have it? Do I have a second? There's this.
Yes, they are.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed?
Give you a hard time.
We're out of here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.